Welcome to Citizen Extra on this Monday, the 27th day of November 2017, the start of a very decisive week for Kenya, as President Uhuru Kenyatta will be sworn in tomorrow at the Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani, while NASA leader Raila Odinga has instructed his supporters to meet him at the Jacaranda Gardens in Embakasi East to honor the 27 people who lost their lives at the hands of the police during the electioneering period. Now, a standoff is looming between the National Super Alliance and the police, who, led by Nairobi County Commander Japheth Koome, say that the Tuesday prayer meeting has not been sanctioned. A worrying state of affairs days after police engaged NASA supporters in running battles for hours during the return of NASA leader Raila Odinga from a 10-day trip to the United States. Well, all this brings us to our question of the day. We are asking you, should the police just allow NASA to hold their prayers, which is their constitutional right, or should, as some have proposed, NASA postpone their meeting to another day? Should the police just allow NASA to hold their prayers? Of course, this is within the Constitution. Or should NASA postpone their meeting to another day? What are your thoughts? Talk to us. 22422 is our SMS line. And on social media as well, use the hashtag CitizenExtra at Citizen TV Kenya on Twitter and Facebook. And I'll be reading some of your feedback throughout the course of this show. I also have a panel here in studio. I'll be introducing them to you shortly. But before that, let's cross over to the Thika Law Courts, where Hassan Mugambi is on standby. The big story for the last couple of days has been the bank heist. Some have compared it to an American movie. And just like in the movies, when suspects are arraigned in court, that's a little bit about what is happening today. 3 suspects were arrested at Marurui Estate in Kiambu on the 25th, 2 days ago. They led investigators to an estate in Juja town where some cash had been hidden. Let's now get more details from Hassan Mugambi on a story that I must say my panel in studio just before we started were actually really discussing and trying to understand. Hassan, do we know more about a robbery that has in many ways caught the attention of the nation?
Well, yes, we are going to find out more today here at the Thika Law Courts, where they will be arraigned. The 3 suspects who were arrested in Juja, brought to Thika Police Station, and will be arraigned today. With them was 20 million shillings and 17 million Kenya shillings in Kenyan currency, and the rest was in other currencies. They are going to be arraigned today, and we are waiting to see what indeed we're waiting to put faces to the names of the trio, 2 of them who are said to be brothers, but we are waiting to see, and that will be established here in a short while when they will be arraigned in courtroom number 1 here at the Thika Law Courts.
Hassan, do we know what sort of investigations or how the police carried out their investigations to find these 3 suspects? Do we have any idea about what's been happening over the last couple of days?
Well, it was quite a heightened investigation, so to speak, from the police here in Thika. They're saying they were interviewing people. I remember just after the very dramatic robbery, it was reported 3 people were held and questioned. That was the caretakers of that particular building, where the robbers are said to have dug a 30-meter tunnel through to the bank, and they actually got to do that particular investigation, interviewing people, and the leads bit by bit led to the arrest of the trio who are going to be arraigned here today. We are going to put faces, like I said, to the names that were flaunted yesterday in that police statement that came to the newsrooms very, very late at night.
Finally, Hassan, I know the details are still scanty. I know that we will learn a lot more as that, the case is hard. But there have been some theories that there could have been an inside job in all this. Have you had anything from the police there about any suspicion on whether somebody within, the banking system could at all have helped for this to happen? I don't know. Have you had anything in such regard?
Well, Wahiga, to a large extent, the members of the National Police Service, especially the detectives handling the case, was saying that this could only be possible through an inside job. There must have been someone within the bank, either an employee or a former employee at that, who aided or abetted this crime that was conducted over a period of 6 months, according to the investigations. And the time that these suspects actually got to, rent those 3 stalls in that particular shopping center before digging the 30-meter tunnel to the bank. How exactly did they get to know where they would, emerge into the strong room? That could only be possible through an inside job. That is according to the officers. Who did it is still out there for them to establish. Wahiga.
Well, very fascinating series of affairs there, a series of events there, Hassan. You can be sure that we'll be keenly waiting to hear what emerges today in that court. And as soon as you have any updates, kindly let us know. Hassan Mugambi reporting live from Thika, just outside one of the law courts, where any minute now we expect 3 suspects to appear there and a case to be heard. They were arrested at Marurui Estate in Kiambu 2 days ago. And of course, they led investigators to Joyland Estate in Juja Town, where some cash had been hidden. Well, we carry on now with, we quickly kick off our discussion here in studio with just 1 day to the swearing in of the president that will kick off tomorrow, at least from 10 o'clock. That is what the law says. Let me introduce my guest in studio, Gabriel Mudhuma, just next to me, political analyst. Welcome to the program. Right next to him, Michael Agwanda, a governance expert. Welcome to the program as well.
Thank you very much.
And of course, to the corner, just to the far right there, Kai Kissinger, an advocate of the High Court. Welcome to the program as well.
Thank you.
Well, what we want to do for part of the program today is to help our viewers understand what the law says about tomorrow. And for that, we need to reference the Constitution and the assumption of the Office of the President Act, just to understand what must happen tomorrow for the whole procedure to be carried out in accordance with the law. Let's start with the Constitution. We'll start with Chapter 9, Page 2, Article 141, Subsection 1. The swearing in of the President-elect shall be in public before the Chief Justice, or in the absence of the Chief Justice, the Deputy Chief Justice. Okay, let's take a look at the next graphic, just to understand our viewers at home. A lot of discussion by panels on what must happen, but what does the law say? Let's take a look at that. The subsection 2 or sub-article 2, the President-elect shall be sworn in on the first Tuesday following the 14th day after the date of the declaration of the result of the presidential election, if no petition has been filed under Article 140. Of course, a petition was filed. So then the 7th day following the date on which the court renders a decision declaring the election to be valid, if any petition has been filed under Article 140. Let's see that next graphic that I've actually just referenced. Exactly, following the 7th day following the date, which is now what tomorrow is. That's the 28th of November 2017, and of course it is a Tuesday. And so the law took into account if a petition takes place, and if not, what will happen, and that's a little bit about what the Constitution has to say. Let's go into how they will be sworn in, which is the next graphic that we have up for you. The President-elect assumes office by taking and subscribing the oath or affirmation of allegiance and the oath or affirmation for the execution of the functions of office. And of course, some advocate here in studio will just help us to understand a bit about the difference between the two, as prescribed in the 3rd schedule. And then thereafter, and of course, this already happened, Parliament shall provide legislation for the procedure and ceremony for the swearing in of a president-elect. So that's a little bit about what the Constitution has to say. Yes, we can put up that last graphic. There we go. Chapter 9, Part 2, Article 141, Subsection 1, 2, or Sub-Article 1, 2, 3, and 4, and what they have to say about what will happen tomorrow. Let's now join my guest here in studio. Let me start with you, Kai Kissinger. A little bit about your take, differences between what Kenyans saw in 2013 and what they can expect to see tomorrow.
Thank you very much. I think when you look at where we are right now, the swearing-in ceremony is the icing on the cake. It means that it is the end product of a political contestation. Now we've come to the end whereby the legalities of the whole process is now determined through the Supreme Court, and also the political the political challenges have also been determined. And so when now it comes to swearing in, then there's as you've rightly put it, we comply with Article 141 of the Constitution, but you don't have to read that article in isolation.
Okay.
You must read that together with the Act which was established in 2012, which we call the Assumption of Office of the President's Act, which was done in 2012. Under that, we have sections 12 all through to 15, which also gives methodology and ideas of how the swearing in is supposed to be done. Now, to answer your question, in 2013, you remember there was a petition also in 2013. And when there's a petition, you have to wait until 14 days expire. Then you have to swear in the president the first Tuesday after the expiry of the 14 days. So that's what we have to comply with. When there's no petition, then it's 7 days. And that 7th day must fall on a Tuesday. Now, in 2013, that time there was a former president who was now handing over power to the incoming president at that time, His Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta.
From former President Mwai Kibaki.
From the former President Mwai Kibaki.
Yes. So
when that happens, then what was required at that time was then the establishment of that act that I've talked about, the assumption of office of the president. Then a committee was then established, or a committee was formed. And this committee is normally for 20 people who come from various ministries in government, foreign affairs, judiciary.
And the law stipulates exactly where they should be picked from.
Exactly.
Okay,
so the law stipulates exactly where they're supposed to be picked from, security agents and all that. Now, in 2013, the oaths that took place in 2013 are not going to take place now.
Okay.
The reason being, in 2013, was an outgoing president handing over power to an incoming president. And therefore, the oaths were specific in the sense that you saw instruments of power changing.
Okay.
And the instruments of power are only two, the sword and the constitution.
And we actually have some of those pictures. We'll be playing them as we continue.
The sword and the constitution now are changing, meaning that former President Mwai Kibaki was now handing the instruments of power to the incoming President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Now, the oaths were then also different. Now, we are going to see a situation whereby the incumbent president, Uhuru Kenyatta, is still proceeding to be the president. So you will not most likely see instruments of power changing. So the oath will be specific, whereby allegiance and execution takes place.
So at no point will anything be handed, will he be handed over like what we saw with the sword last time or the constitution?
No, it will not be. So it will be a very brief ceremony.
Okay.
Because remember, this ceremony is both judicial and military. They blend because there's a role that the military takes place and there's a role that the judiciary takes place. So it will be blending. So it will be very specific and very brief from the legal point of view.
Okay,
yes.
Okay. Let me bring in Michael Agwanda now just to get your thoughts on what Kenyans can expect to see tomorrow. You can weigh now and even just a little bit about what the law has to say in regards to the same.
I think in regards to what the law has put out there in terms of the swearing in of the president, it is very clear that the Chief Justice will be there and witnessing what is happening. Actually, the swearing in will be done by the Registrar of the Judiciary, the Chief Registrar of Judiciary.
Amadi.
Aman Amadi, in the presence of the Chief Justice. The mass will still be there. It will be there as a symbol of authority and power, regardless of whether this is an incumbent president or a president that is outgoing and a new president coming in. That is well stipulated because that's the symbol of power that will be handed over to the president. The president will still swear with the Bible and the Constitution as well, which he will be swearing in to abide to and to follow as a unifying figure of this country. The president will still be put on a table where he will have to sign his certificate as a president of this country. And so it will not be as if a new president is coming in and the old one going away, but it will be, those symbols will still be there. The mass will still be there. It will be placed for the public to see. But in terms of my expectation of what is going to happen tomorrow, I know that there are a lot of discussion of the dignitaries coming in. I think we've been told that about 20 prime ministers or presidents are coming into the country. And so I expect tight security tomorrow in the country. And again, I expect a lot of people to walk in to witness the swearing of the president in Kasarani. Remember, as I've said before, the president has great support in this country. And so it's the opposition that has great support. But now, what complicates matters is that the opposition also, NASA, is also calling for a meeting in Jacaranda tomorrow, where they're also calling for the same security to be accorded them. In fact, Honorable Raila's specific words in this case was, do not hurt our people, don't harm our people. And so you will expect the country to grapple with a huge security presence, both in the city where, as we've been told, some roads will be blocked because of the dignitaries, but you also have a group of people going to where Honorable Raila and his cronies are going to be, basically, as a memorial service to those that have been killed during his welcoming home from United States of America just the other day. And so you will see that there will be a complete divide of the people going over to for the swearing in of the president, and some people really going over to the rally where Raila will be. Now, how this will be handled by the security apparatus in this country without any causing any mayhem or fracas is something that we wait to see. I appeal, again to the IG. That all
I was actually going to ask you, what's your advice?
I appeal to the IG that all these are Kenyans. Just like the dignitaries will require the security that they deserve, let the other Kenyans that are going to be with Raila and NASA people be accorded the same security, so that there is nobody that will be hurt tomorrow, no one that will be killed tomorrow because of any reason. I appeal to the opposition as well. Look, I think enough is enough in terms of the people that are dying in this country. Really, the rallies should be held peacefully, in my view. The confrontation of the police must be avoided with all necessary, arms apart. The police should know that these are their brothers and sisters, and shooting into the crowd is not what we want today. We'll have dignitaries, and any eventful that will result into people's death will not be what the presidents and the prime minister who are coming into this country tomorrow want to go out with. That as we're having fun this side swearing in the president, some people were being killed at the other corner.
Fair enough. I want to cut you off because we are actually coming back to discuss this in depth, and I'll be coming back to you. Let me give Gabriel a chance to also weigh in. Gabriel, come in.
Thank you, Wahiga, and good morning to our viewers. I think Chapter 9, when you look at it, it has actually edified and educated most of us who actually didn't know how this process of the, getting the president goes. But there are three things that probably I'd like to talk about this morning, which goes on to affirm how a president or any, leader in that particular office must go through. And I think the three, and I've had so many people, including lawyers, trying to navigate out of that scenario, out of the Constitution, which I think sometimes is a disservice to the people who really don't understand, what should take place. But the three things that actually affirm somebody who is going to be elected in that seat is able to go in and be sworn in and take over the instruments of power. One among them is, we all know, and Wakili here will actually be able to, prolong this argument. He must be a registered voter, obviously. He must go through an electoral process. There must be a winner. He must be announced by the body which is mandated in the country to run an election, which is IEBC in this case. Thereafter, that particular announcement is actually sent to the Chief Justice, the announcement, and also to the incumbent. And then thereafter, we have reached the final stage, like Wakili said. This is the final stage of the legal process, which will happen tomorrow at Kasarani, where he comes in. He is sworn in the presence of the Chief Justice, and as you've read eloquently, if the Chief Justice is not available, then the Deputy Chief Justice takes over the mantle to swear in the President. Thereafter, I think the Constitution now gives directions and directives how the President will actually be able to drive the affairs of this country within the parentheses of the Constitution. So we are looking at a legal aspect tomorrow, which is coming to a halt, and now we move on to the agendas that this particular person said he would do. So I think as much as we are waiting to see what pans out tomorrow, it is both historic because you're looking at a president who is now coming to the end of his term, and I hope we won't play politics a lot in his remaining 5 years. He has, in manifesto mentioned what he would like to do and the kind of legacy he would like to leave for this country. So I think there are so much that will go deep into that detail. So as much as it will be historic, we also have to realize that it is somebody who will actually be coming to the end of his term, and his legacy will be, something that he'll leave for this Kenya, for Kenya to be talking about and probably read in the history books for many years to come.
I'll come back actually and talk a little bit about what do you hope he will work on as his legacy, or what had we seen in terms of the building of a legacy within his first 5 years, and we'll come back and talk a bit about that. We've referenced quite a bit in this discussion the assumption of the Office of the President Act, so maybe we can just help our viewers by actually putting that up on the screen. If we have those other graphics now, we can take a look at them. Assumption of the Office of the President Act, Part 4, Section 12, the swearing-in ceremony. The swearing-in of the President-elect shall be conducted in a public ceremony held in the capital city in accordance with Article 141 of the Constitution. And if we can go on to the next. Of course, that is why we are seeing it in Nairobi tomorrow. The committee shall publish by notice in the Gazette the date and places for the conduct of the swearing-in ceremony that we've also seen taking place. And of course, the third one, which will be coming up on your screen shortly, is that the day on which the President-elect is sworn in shall be a public holiday. And we've seen the necessary documentation for that being circulated. Tomorrow is a public holiday, and this is not just a government directive, but it's also within the law that should happen. Let's go to Assumption of the Office of the President Act, Part 4, Section 13 now, which talks about the taking of oath and signing of the Certificate of Inauguration, and that also coming up on your screen. The President-elect shall during the swearing-in ceremony take and subscribe the oath or affirmation of allegiance and the oath or affirmation for the execution of the functions of office. All this again is in accordance with Article 141 of the Constitution. And who shall administer the oath or affirmation under subsection 1? And again, we'll be putting that up on your screen. It shall be administered to the President-elect by the Chief Registrar before the Chief Justice, or in the absence of the Chief Justice, the Deputy Chief Justice, not earlier than 10 a.m. and not later than 2 p.m., save that the Deputy Chief Justice shall undertake the task only in circumstances where the Chief Justice is incapacitated. Again, we'll look at all these scenarios with my guest here in studio, but now we understand why tomorrow this process can only happen between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Again, it's stipulated in the law, and who can do it, and if they cannot, who can stand in their place. The law, again, very clear on that. This is one of those areas where we can say the law is very clear. Right. There's no ambiguity. And finally, upon taking or subscribing to the oath or affirmation under subsection 1, again, that's the next graphic, the President shall sign a certificate of inauguration. Can we have that graphic now? In the presence of the Chief Justice, or in the absence of the Chief Justice, the Deputy Chief Justice shall take over. And there we go. Just a bit about what I've read, that once he has taken the oath or affirmation under subsection 1, the President shall sign a certificate of inauguration. And of course, it also stipulates in the presence of the Chief Justice, or if the Chief Justice is not available, the Deputy Chief Justice. Now, the next part, which is the final part of what I have in terms of graphics, usually stipulates what would happen if an outgoing president is handing over to an incoming president. And if we can have that up, this is subsection 14. Handing over of instruments of power and authority, and Kaikai Kissinger alluded to that quite a bit. Upon signing the certificate of inauguration, the outgoing president shall hand over to the president the following instruments of power and authority: a sword and the Constitution, but the provisions of this section shall not apply where the incumbent is re-elected into office. That's a little bit about what you had to say. Kaikai Kissinger, it's been 5 years since Kenyans delved into this, unlike some of you who read a bit of this every day. Walk us through maybe the key differences between the oath or affirmation of allegiance and the oath or affirmation for the execution of the functions of an office, if you're able to just help us to know clearly what the differences will be tomorrow.
Thank you. And before I go there, let's put this into context. Remember that this law is a new law. It came into effect in 2012. Now, there's a reason why Section 13, from Section 12 to 14 all through, you are seeing that it has to be done in public. And even says where it has to be done in public.
And at what time?
And the timing.
Yes.
And I'll give a bit of history on this. The reason why we have this new law, together with the new constitution, was the challenges that arose during the former president, Mwai Kibaki's second tenure. You do recall that when the former president won the election, the 2007-2008 contested election, he was sworn in at some hours which Kenyans felt it was not the appropriate time. You remember he was sworn in at about 6 p.m.
That's right.
So when now we began reforms,
and of course at State House also.
It was at State House.
Yes.
Now when we began reforms, and previously the former presidents were being sworn in normally at State House. So when we began reforms, Kenyans felt, look, why was he sworn in past 6 hours? Where did the registrar come from? That time there was no chief registrar. That time was a registrar. Where did the chief justice come from at 6 to go and swear him at 6 in State House? So we must have a situation whereby we swear in our president in the public domain, in the public arena, so that it's not seen to be being dashed to be sworn in. So that's why reform came in. And this law addresses exactly that challenge. Now we shifted and said it must be shown in a public place, that public place must be gazetted. In the case of our president, it must be in the capital. However, even the timings were then reframed in the constitution. Previously, constitution, prior to 2010, we did not have specific timings. Now the timings have been reaffirmed, and it has to be done between 10 to 2 p.m. I do recall that I participated in the swearing in the current president in 2013. And the challenge which normally you face at that point is the time frames between 10 to 2. Because I do recall that we were reaching about 1:30 and we had not sworn in the president. And we were dashing, because if you don't swear in the president by 2 p.m., then it becomes a constitutional crisis. It will not be a law. It's outside the law. So you will see that tomorrow, the chief registrar and the chief justice will be pressed for time.
In a hurry.
In a hurry. They must deliver it by 2 p.m., whatever they can. And remember, former presidents and sitting presidents from different countries, dignitaries are arriving in the stadium at about 11. So you have a very limited time. So you really have to squeeze yourself within that time limit. Otherwise, you will not have a president at past 2 p.m. Now,
we don't even want to discuss what will happen after that. They are very quiet.
He has to be sworn in.
At all costs.
At all costs, he must be sworn in by 2 p.m. The function of the judiciary ends before 2 p.m.
Okay.
So the constitutional timelines are very strict. And so I remember we were pushing, please allow us to swear in, because it's like people are excited.
And so what gets in the way? The entertainment, the side shows, what would get in the way of making a timed program, then get out of time?
And this is where the challenge is, and this is where the committee is supposed to deal with. The committee that I talked about, the 20-member committee of the Assumption of the Office Committee, are supposed to come up with a program. And the program will be specific. It's divided always into two: the legal aspect and the military aspect, because there was a military aspect at that time, and the legal aspect. So the legal aspect, you must be given just like an hour to do your function, because that's purely a judiciary function, and you must do it within that time limit. So by the time the guests are sitting and the MCs are coming in, and depending on the program, you are doing already 12. Mark my word.
2 hours and
2
counting.
hours, exactly.
To go.
Yeah, to go. And you have to do it within those 2 hours. So that you will see tomorrow, the person to watch will be the chief registrar of the judiciary. She will be completely under stress to deliver the presidency in terms of swearing in process and all instruments tomorrow. I'm sure she will not have a very peaceful night. Remember, there will be training. The president has to be taken through this, because you do that. They are doing it today. I do recall during our time, we did it a day before he was sworn in, because he has to know what he's coming to do, what he's coming to swear.
And of course, you do that where at the president's location of convenience.
Of convenience. How does he hold the Bible? Is it the right hand, the left hand? How does he read? You have to train him. So it's really tough for the chief registrar. But of course, she's capable and she will do it. Now, when it comes to oath taking, there will be two in this situation. Remember that the other situation whereby Section 14 now will be dispensed with, because it's the incumbent president. So there will be no instruments of power changing, because he can't change instruments of power from himself to himself. so there will be no instruments of power changing. The only other way instruments of power will change will be the next election. So then, oath of allegiance. You are taking an oath of allegiance, very brief, according to the schedule, allegiance to the Constitution.
Right. Okay.
So you are saying that you are taking oath of allegiance, that you will be the president of this country for the next 5 years. You are taking oath of allegiance, and you affirm that you will ensure that the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya will be adhered to.
Which reminds me, in Zimbabwe, we saw key figures taking allegiance to the president, actually going and shaking the hand, and some guests that we had here in studio were asking, why are you seemingly swearing allegiance to the presidency, while you should be actually swearing allegiance to the body that is higher than the presidency, which is the Constitution.
So that is the basic definition of allegiance. Okay. The other oath is what we call execution. When you are now being sworn in, you owe to the allegiance to the Constitution. You now must say, as a president, that you will ensure that you execute the functions of the office of the president without fear or favor. So help me God.
Let me get some reactions now from my other panelists. Michael, I think we're all being suitably educated nevertheless. He was heavily involved in 2013. Interesting things you've said. I'd like to get your take now.
You know, I have to advise my brother Kissinger that it doesn't matter how many things will be happening in that field. This guy will be sworn in before 2 o'clock.
Come what may.
It really doesn't matter. I mean, he's been looking for this day for many, many months, and it's been a little bit elusive, you know, for that reason. You know what has been happening in the political arena and in the courts of justice. And you know, I tell you, whatever you do, the guy will be sworn in. He'll make sure he's there on time. Even if it's cutting off the military from their whatever they're doing, they'll do it to make sure that he's sworn in. He will not want to see another constitutional lacuna in this country that is not sworn in by 2 o'clock. So I guarantee you that he's going to be there, and his main mandate is that I'll be sworn in before 2, whether life or dead. And that I can tell you.
and by the way, you know, when he got, like what Michael Ogwanda is saying, probably I don't know. I'm just speculating whether some things might change here and there to just have him probably sworn in first, and then or the trapping.
The things later.
Yeah, you know, later the speeches and you know the introductions. It could happen that way, because I mean, if you look at it of late, you know, the president has actually been a very, but I mean, he's been a stickler, if you will, to really what the Constitution says. Here, you know, you remember the Supreme Court, like the Supreme Court, the earlier Supreme Court verdict that nullified his election. He came out and, you know, broadly said, you know, I'm against that, the verdict, but, you know, I'll respect it. You know, and apart from that, there are so many other things. You remember the issue of the 10,000 policemen, you know, he went out hired, and then somebody told him, hey, my friend, that's against the law. You know, he took that back. So the fact that he's actually been a stickler to the Constitution actually puts it ahead, you know, of ensuring that everything falls between or within the law and within the Constitution. So we have to wait and see. But probably, I'm just speculating, we may actually see some things, you know, fall off and come later. So, I mean, like a good wakili is educating us here. If we are looking at a time between 10 and 2, I mean, I mean, given how huge a ceremony will be, that just tells you they have a very small window of, you know, riding within the frames of the Constitution. So I would expect some things may be pushed later, and the swearing in becomes, you know, takes precedence of the program.
Yeah, but
come in.
Yeah, and as I was saying, you know, the same thing we're saying here, that the president will definitely be sworn in tomorrow. I think the fundamental question that probably will be I'll be looking at is, man, what is going to be his speech tomorrow, and how is it going to be like? Is it a speech that is going to unify this country? Is it a speech that is going to bring hope in the economic imbalances in this country, an economic downturn in this country? Is it a speech that is going to accept that, yes, things have not been right in my governance, but I can promise you that there will be some changes? Is it a speech that is going to extend an olive branch to the opposition and say, look, I will need you to be here so that we can run this country together? Is it a speech that will tell Kenyans that we may even have to go an extra mile of changing the constitution for the purposes of inclusivity and not the exclusivity that we are talking about here. I want to see tomorrow a situation where the government will bend their knees and saying, ladies and gentlemen, we are running a country that belongs to you people. We are running a country that seems to be divided today. I want to see a situation where we own up. Yesterday they were in church, the president and the deputy president, and they knelt down, and it was a huge symbol of submission to the high authority that is God.
We actually have that story that will be running shortly, done by Jackie Maribe.
Exactly, and I want to see them also coming to the reality and saying, yes, this country has been riddled with corruption issues, and we accept that it is there, but we want to see a change in the most honest way possible. I want to see a speech that will bring this country together, but not a situation where we've seen in the political arena where people just thump and say, this is who we are the government. I want to see a situation where the speech will bring hope again, and not just by having eloquent speeches, not having well-written speeches, but that is folded with the action. I want to see a situation where they could even call for an inquest for injustices that perhaps we've seen with the police, where police have killed so many, and not even a single inquest is asked for. A situation whether the police was right or wrong, an inquest will justify that.
Although we've seen a bit of that in Kisumu. I know 4 police officers have been put on the spot, and the family of Baby Pendo have been asked to follow up that those 4 can. But
just
for you want to see more?
But we're looking at a huge number of people that have died with the bullets. Perhaps an inquest will be able to do that. When you do that, even the other cops that are out there that perhaps were even thinking of doing that, because rallies will still be there. People are still going to picket, my brother, and people are still going to demonstrate. How do we ensure that we do not lose lives and properties through the guns? That is not acceptable in this country. I want to see that if one person dies in this country, whether it is in the opposition or in the government, it is taken so seriously. And we don't say, oh, even before investigation, that they were robbing a shop or they were doing this. These are the kind of speeches that perhaps I would want to expect. Because I can tell you for free, unless the president and his group decides to extend an olive branch to the opposition and say, let's come to the table and talk about this, we are not going to move forward.
Fair enough. Let me get reactions.
I think if you are in this country and you've been here for quite some time and following the politics and the nature of our politics, you can actually read already what the speech that the president is going to speak tomorrow.
You can, in a sense, predict the tone and
you
message.
can predict the tone of what the president is going to talk tomorrow. Remember, this is not a new president. He's doing his second term. He was where he is in 2013. Much hasn't changed. You remember that 2013, the disputed election, it went to the Supreme Court, it was disputed. The same thing happened. The opposition was invited, they refused to come. Right now, the opposition have been invited, they have refused to come. But look at the steps that the president has been doing since he was declared, legally declared by the Supreme Court Monday. What the president has done are 2 fundamental things. One, he's pushing away the debate from the ordinary politics to development and saying, mark me on the development that have been taking place. So he's shifting from politics, and he's actually saying publicly, I'm tired of politics. In fact, he's questioning why you guys are still calling analysts. Why you guys are still calling analysts on television to analyze what?
Although the NASA side now feel that he's intimidating political analysts, that now some don't want to come on screen because the president has said.
What I'm saying is you can read that he's running away from politics, of the decisive politics, to now development oriented. So in that speech, if I was writing his speech, I'll be more focused as a speechwriter towards this development agenda. What is your agenda in 2013? Did you achieve it? What has been your agenda or manifesto, political manifesto for the Jubilee Party for the following 5 years? Talk to me about health. Talk to me about infrastructure. Talk to me about transport. Talk to me all these kind of things. Security aspects. What are you going to achieve? Mark it for me. Now, that I can assure you. The other thing that is probably going to talk about is how then do we, as Kenyans, have political tolerance and respect our institutions in terms of their independence? Because for the last 1 or 3 months, you've had a lot of attacks to institutions that we fought for, we developed, we have a proper legal framework, and there's been attacks to the judiciary, there's been attacks to IBC, there have been attacks to all these other institutions and independence, including media. So how are we then going to respect the institutions that we've developed over the years with the legal framework that they exist on, and understand that these institutions are independent?
Okay.
So those are some of the things that the president will be talking about.
That if you were writing his speech, you would have keyed it, penned in there, if you had the chance to.
If I was their speechwriter, I'll focus more about the manifesto.
Right.
If I was the speechwriter, I'm telling you, I'll focus more about what is your manifesto as Jubilee Party for the next 5 years. What are you going to achieve?
Wouldn't reference some of the cries that NASA supporters have? He's mentioned lives lost.
No, lives lost.
You wouldn't allocate a section
life
to
lost,
that,
of
for
course,
example?
That's an issue of the police now.
Yes.
And of course, the head of state, the president, that's very critical. The head of state, the president, is in charge of our security in terms of persons and in charge of security in terms of property. So that will, of course, come in. And remember, these institutions like the police are answerable to these kind of things.
Okay, let me interrupt you so that he can come in. And even as you comment, can one speech alone change perception that has been some hard-fought positions that have taken 8-9 months to dig into? Can one speech really change?
Let me tell you, speeches, you know, many people have read them throughout history, and not only in Kenya, to just mean words. No, sometimes speeches can actually reach to the core of humanity, and they have. All men are created equal. That was a speech that reached to the core of man and made people change. Slave trade was finished by speeches, people who reached out to the core of man and the spirit of humanity to tell the rest that we are all created equal. So I think the speech that probably I would expect from the head of state, one, is already has already been actionalized by reaching out. I don't think, and I stand corrected, I don't think at this point the president can reach more than he already has by, first of all, inviting the persons of Raila Odinga and NASA to come for the inauguration. As much as people may think, you know what, you're taunting these people, no. If it's any reverence of reaching to somebody, come, we entertain a constitutional mandate together. That is one. Probably the things that I'd like to see, and I agree so much with Wakili on this, is the development agenda that he promised. Remember, I was telling people the manifestos that we saw can actually be categorized as what you'd call a promissory note. Majority of Kenyans who voted for this president probably did so because of what was promised and that which was enshrined in their manifesto. The president has really, and you know, it's not even politics anymore. These are just facts. He's done very well in matters education. You have seen now, you know, the KCSE, I mean, where it's almost a fair ground. A long time ago, you know, and probably 3 years back, YHB's kids were passing, you know,
with flying colors.
With flying colors. Today, you have, and I used to call it a social vice, where you are putting two people to compete between the lazy and the determined.
You're really hoping for a manifesto-oriented speech tomorrow.
And I hope it captures that, because when we are talking about inclusivity, and this is what I want us to gather, I also hope that he goes a lot to talk about devolution. And I think this is what will change this country.
Okay.
When we talk about inclusivity, people starting to understand what devolution captures and encapsulates. I am telling you, Wahiga, his speech may actually be driving this country in the right direction.
You'll allow me to interrupt you. I'll come back and allow you to carry on, because we need to take a quick break. And even as we do that, we are monitoring a conference, an international conference on drugs and law enforcement at the Windsor Golf Club, where Acting Interior CS Dr. Fred Matiang'i is expected to give a statement there. Those are the images that you are seeing on your screen from the Windsor Golf Club. I will be taking you there shortly. It looks like it has already begun, and as soon as the CS is about to make his statement, then we shall cross over. We take a quick break now. You're watching Citizen Extra live on Citizen TV on this Monday, just a day before President Uhuru Kenyatta is sworn in for his second term at the Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani. We carry on with that topic and so much more after this short break.